everybody, it's great to see you. Thanks again for tuning in once again. And I have a great dinner time meal for you that I'm preparing tonight. Now, I've had quite a few sweet potatoes stored in my basement, and it's nice and cool and dry down there, so I just kept them in a open container, and they sit there, and I pop through them every once in a while and dig some out for dinner or bake one up for a lunch or whatever. But today I'm going to be making this sweet potato and savory chicken dish that is just wonderful. Now, this is something that I've kind of invented over time, and I love to take things out of the pantry and out of the refrigerator, combine them with a few spices or herbs or things like that, and just make a wonderful dinner. So tonight, that's what I'm going to do. So I've gone ahead and I've peeled about 7 or 8 cups of sweet potato, and I'm just cubing them up into small sizes. Like I said, I've peeled them up. I've got quite a few here, and I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna put them into a nice heavy stock pot. And this process is going to take just a little bit of time, but I'm gonna go ahead and fill this with water, and I fill it with warm water. You can do cold water if you want to, but you wanna make sure that the potatoes are covered very well, because they're going to, as it boils, it evaporates. As the water boils out, it evaporates. And you just want to make sure that you have plenty of water for your sweet potatoes to boil down. Now I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to put this on the oven, on the range, and it's going to cook down until these sweet potatoes are nice and tender. So almost the consistency of when you would mash them. Okay, so they're going to be nice and soft, because we're going to have to mash them for the next process. So this is just about covered. Now I've gone ahead, I've rinsed these off ahead of time. There was a couple of bigger chunks that I just had to cut up, but I just use a regular vegetable peeler or potato peeler and peel them. You can use a knife if you want to, if you want to skip the whole process of using the peeler. Sometimes people are a little afraid of the peeler, thinking that it's going to hurt them, right? Well, I've been nicked a few times myself. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to stick this on the range top. I'm going to put it on high, put a cover on it, and I'm just going to let them boil down until they're ready to go, and we're going to start on the next process. Okay, my potatoes have just finished cooking. They're nice and soft. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I have a colander right here in the sink, and I'm just going to drain this. Now, if you have a pasta cooker or something like that you would like to use and drain, you can definitely use that, and then that way you just pick it up and it's all done. I don't have one of those. Someday I'm going to have one, but I don't have one of those. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead. I got all the water drained right out of that. And then what I'm going to do is return the sweet potatoes right back to that same pot, because we're going to use this pot to build the rest of our dinner. Okay, so the rest of the base for this. All right, so I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to give this a quick mash, and then I'm going to add some black beans to it. Now I have a 15.5-ounce can of black beans that I've rinsed and drained, and that's about 1.5 cups or so, give or take, and that's going to go right into the mixture as well. Now I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to move this top, because we're going to need that later on when we put everything together. Now, I didn't cook the black beans ahead of time. They're going to get kind of all cooked down in this, but I am going to go ahead and give them a quick mash. So I go ahead and I use the canned black beans. You could soak your beans overnight if you wanted to, and then give them a mash. I just find it easier to run to my pantry and grab a can of the beans already done. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to add several spices to this, along with a few other things, and it's just going to be heavenly. So if you have some mushrooms in your refrigerator that are ready to go by, or you need to use them up, and you're not going to use them before they go bad, slice them up with maybe an onion or so, and put them in a bag and freeze them. I do this all the time, and it's just wonderful. Now I've gone ahead and thawed this out of my freezer, and it's just some mushrooms and some onions. Now, if you have some fresh mushrooms, you're probably gonna wanna have a good cup of mushrooms and 1 medium to large size onion. Now I'm gonna go ahead and put this in my colander as well to drain out any of the juice from thawing them out. just so there's not an overabundance of liquid in this, because we're gonna add liquid to it, but we wanna be able to control the liquid that we put in here, okay? So 1 large onion and about a cup of mushrooms, okay? So I'm just gonna give this, mix this in. That smells amazing, by the way. Amazing. Okay, now what we're gonna add is we're gonna add several things that I have already cut up so that you can see here. Now, first things first, 1/4 cup of butter, okay? And I've just kind of sliced that, and that's just gonna help marry everything together and keep it nice and rich. Now, for the spices, I've gone ahead and done 2 rounded teaspoons, I should say, of garlic powder. And then I've done a whole tablespoon of onion powder. Okay, so that's gonna go in there. You definitely want that nice oniony flavor. You've already got the onion in there, but adding the onion powder is just gonna intense that flavor, especially with the sweet potato being as bland as it is. You need to spice it up a little bit. And then to that, I have several spices here that I used. I had 1 teaspoon of salt, a teaspoon of pepper, and then I did a 1/2 teaspoon of cumin and a 1/2 teaspoon of thyme. And that is all gonna go right in there. And they're all just the dried spices there. I also, to that, took 1 stalk of celery, and I finely minced it up with my knife. And I just go ahead and I chop up 1 full stalk of celery. One full celery stalk. So it's gonna vary on how big they are, but a couple of tablespoons is what you want, okay? So with cooking, it's kind of nice because you can just throw a little of this in, a little of that, taste it, needs this, it needs that. That's kind of the beauty part of cooking versus baking. Baking kind of has to be exact in order for it to rise properly. You can kind of fiddle with the flavors a little bit, but you need to be pretty precise when it comes to measuring the salt and the baking soda and the baking powder and things like that. Okay, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna add a little bit of brown sugar to this to kind of make the little sweet part. The sweet and the savory go really well together in this dish, but you need a little bit more sweet. The sweet potato itself, they call it sweet potato. It's not super sweet unless you add sugar to it, right? So 2 tablespoons of brown sugar in there, okay? And then we're going to add 1 small can. Now this is, I think, what is it, 6 ounces, I believe? Let me look. Yes, 6 ounces, 6-ounce can of tomato paste. Now this is just going to help you have a nice thick base to it. And it doesn't give it a real tomatoey flavor. It just helps with the overall richness of the whole dish itself. All right, so 1 full can goes in there. Just make sure I get it all out. Okay, and then last, we need to put in some heavy cream. Now, this is 2 cups of heavy cream that we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna put in there. Now, it kind of sounds weird, all of these together, but let me tell you, it is so delicious. Now, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm just gonna take the potato masher and kind of incorporate all of these together. Now, this is gonna be pretty thick in flavor. Thick in consistency. Sorry about that. It's going to be thick in consistency. And it is just going to be delicious. Okay. Now next what I'm going to do is I am going to add a little bit of water. Now I'm not going to add too much. I'm just going to add a little bit. Probably about a cup. Okay. So I've got my little liquid measuring cup right here. And I'm just going to add 1 cup of water to this. So now what I've gone ahead and done is I've thawed out 4 chicken breasts. They're boneless chicken breasts. You could do drumsticks if you wanted to. You could do thighs, you could do breasts, you could do whatever you want. Now I go ahead and I buy these in big bulk. And then I take 2 at a time and I wrap them up and I suck all the air out of them and then I freeze them. Now I'm gonna put the whole breast right in here. So we have got 2 more. And this one's still frozen just a hair. And I'm just layering them in the saucepan, okay? So now what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna poke them down in just so that they're covered a little bit. Now I'm gonna return this to the stove top on low. And I'm gonna cook this low to medium, okay? And I'm gonna cook this ever so slowly in this pot for the next hour, okay? So you definitely want to keep an eye on it. Keep it on low, 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 because you don't want it to burn, okay? And this is just going to slowly cook. And you could do this in a crock pot as well. If you wanted to go ahead and cook the potatoes ahead of time and do all the mashing and everything and then just throw this in the crock pot, you could definitely do that. It wouldn't cook in the hour that you need it to. So if you had the rest of the day, then that's totally fine. But I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna return the cover to this, and this is gonna go back on my stove on low for a good hour. And then I'm gonna check it probably at the 45-minute mark just to see how my chicken is. And every once in a while, I'm gonna give it a stir. So this is a good time if you're making other things in the kitchen to just put this on nice and low, and every once in a while return to it, give it a little stir just so it doesn't stick on the bottom. But a nice heavy stock pot is gonna be the answer for that, all right? So you definitely wanna have a good quality stock pot. So we'll be back in about an hour to check on it and see how it's going, so don't go away. Hey everybody, we're back. It's been just about an hour, and I checked this just a little bit ago and it was just perfect. So I'm removing it from the heat. Now it's gonna have quite a bit of liquid in it. It was not only just the water that we had, but the cook down of the sweet potato. I checked it every so often, gave it a stir. You may still have some of the little sediments on the bottom of this pan, but it'll be no problem to clean up at all. Now this looks just wonderful. Now I'm gonna show you, I'm gonna actually spoon up so you can see it. You can see the nice richness of the black bean and just everything. It smells heavenly. So now what I have is some fresh kale. I've gone ahead and taken out all the stems and I've chopped it up nice and fine. And these are just the end leaves of that kale. Then that's exactly what you want. So I've got about a ½ pound of kale here. And I'm gonna put it, now it seems like a lot, but it's just like spinach. It's gonna cook right down. Now this is a super hot mixture because it just came off of the stove top. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna kind of stir this all in. And this is going to cook right down. Now I'm gonna return this to the stove just for a couple of minutes, just until that kale cooks down and gets all soft. It wilts like almost immediately. So sometimes you don't even need to return it to the stove, but I am just for a couple of minutes, just while I get my zoodles together. And then I'm gonna come back and we're gonna put everything together and you're gonna see the finished product. This smells heavenly. All right, everybody, we're back. I have got my zoodles all warmed up. These are just some summer squash and zucchini noodles that I did earlier this summer, and they are just so delicious in substitute of spaghetti. Look at this long one. Woo! That is a long one. That's gonna take me a while to try and get through. These are just so good for you, and they have a great source of fiber and just all those healthy vitamins that you need. And I just go ahead and put them right through my little noodle maker, my little shredder that I have, and I blanch them just for a couple of minutes, and then I pack them and freeze them. And then what I do is I go ahead and I take the zoodles out of the freezer, thaw them out, and then just put them in some boiling water for a few minutes to cook them up until they're nice and tender. So I'm gonna go ahead, this is super hot because I did return it back to the stove top just for a couple of minutes, just to make sure that that kale all cooks down well. And this is just wonderful, you guys. You can see all of the kale in there, and you can see the sweet potato, and it's just heavenly. And I've got a nice breast right there. So you could top this with a little bit more herbs. You can put some maybe fresh Parmesan cheese on it, whatever you would like. So I hope that you like this dinner. Definitely do it for your family. They'll love it. So don't forget to like and share and subscribe to that YouTube channel. That red button, just hit subscribe and you can be clued in on any time that I make a video. Also, hop on over to the website, order a cookbook, and browse around and see all the great products that we have there. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. And remember, whatever you do, you make it with love. We'll see you next time.